What are the odds? What are the odds of having two cities both on fire within a week of each other, where significant portions of the land are completely burnt to the ground? Both have declared they will be smart cities, and both say they're going to be run by AI. I'm Stephanie Keith.
And I am Tara Manjekovic, and we are unapologetically outspoken. Okay, so God, there's so much weird shit going on. But before we get into it, I just want to throw something out there for our listeners who might like weird shit, and specifically interesting weird crafts. So it's no secret that one of our biggest supporters is my best friend, Erin Yandel, and she is probably the most creative person I know. She does these amazing craft projects, and she recently started a little side business, and it's called Embrace the Unloved. And she's selling her stuff on Etsy, and she makes like really cool wind chimes and stuff, and she uses bones. And
Oh my
so
gosh, really? That's
yeah,
so cool.
it's really cool. So she uses bones and then beads, and her stuff is just so beautiful and like mystical and interesting. So if you like weird shit and you want some like really awesome crafts, like please go check out her website or her Etsy shop, Embrace the Unloved. And then while you're on Etsy, go get our stickers. So anyway, moving on. The fucking fire, Stephanie. Like, what the fuck is going on? We have talked a lot about the Maui fires lately, but I didn't realize until I started looking up a bunch of shit that the whole fucking world is on fire right now. Like, literally, almost every country is on fire. And there's no way that these are all natural fires. So, there is a wildfire in the Canary Islands in Spain that's completely out of control. And it's been raging for, on the weekend, it was like it had been going on for 4 days. So, what, 7 days now? And how interesting that this is yet another popular tourist destination, just like Maui. And since last Friday, they've evacuated almost 9,000 people, and that number is expected to continue to rise. I read an article in the Epic Times over the weekend that was talking about how emergency services for the Canary Islands said that the number of evacuees could surpass 26,000, and the regional government said the fire is like completely beyond their capacity to extinguish it. And firefighters haven't been able to establish a perimeter around the fire. It's consumed over 12,355 acres as of the weekend. And according to the governor, Rosa Davila, she said that they have never seen a fire of this magnitude on the Canary Islands, and the cause is still unknown.
Oh, isn't that funny? It's unknown there too, right?
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, you want to know what else is strange? Tenerife, which is one of the islands in Spain, is a smart island, just like Maui. The same exact company, which is the Institute of Technology and Renewable Energy, is the same company invested in Maui for smart city initiatives.
Shut up. Really?
Yes. And allegedly, the approval for these projects for both Maui and Tenerife was August 17th. So is that a coincidence that fires broke out and like literally cleared all of this land that would be perfect for these projects? Like, what the fuck?
There's no fucking way. There's no way that's a coincidence. I'm sorry, but there's no way.
Yeah.
And then aside from that, there's fucking British Columbia. Sorry, I am really like saying fuck a lot today.
It was like me the other day.
No, I mean, we all know I say it all the time, but I feel like it's like really out there today. I'll try to control myself. In British Columbia, there are hundreds of fires going on right now, to the point where there's a state of emergency in effect. They've instituted travel bans, and they've evacuated like over 30,000 people as of this past weekend. And according to the Canadian press, there are 380 wildfires burning across just British Columbia, and 158 of those wildfires are out of control. 16 of them are highly visible and threatening people and property, and they're being described, again with these same words, unprecedented, mind-boggling. And in Canada as a whole, there's over 1,000 fires burning across the country. This has been going on for what, a couple months now?
Hmm.
And more than half of the fires are out of control, according to the Canadian Interagency Forest Fire Center. And they said that so far this year, there have been more than 5,738 fires, and that Canada hasn't had fires anywhere near this bad since 1989. And even back then, the destruction caused by the fires in 89 was only half of the amount of destruction that's occurred so far this year, and we're only in August. And so this is literally the worst year on record for fires in Canada. And get this shady shit. There was a Reuters report that came out a couple days ago on August 19th talking about how Meta started blocking news on Facebook and Instagram for all users in Canada. And they just did that this month. And it's in response to some kind of new laws requiring payment for news articles. So now the people in Canada can't share information about what's happening with these fires on their social media. And officials in Canada are demanding that Meta lift these bans and allow news sharing because they're saying it's reckless and irresponsible and impacting the safety of Canadians. And so what people are resorting to doing is like posting screenshots of news information because they can't share any actual links to news feeds. And so how did Meta respond to this? They basically said that the company has activated a quote safety check feature that allows users to tell people that they're safe in the wake of a natural disaster or crisis. And Canadians can use Facebook and Instagram to access official government agency information and official information from emergency services and approved NGOs. So, Stephanie, this is fucking classic propaganda and control. Like, you can only share what the government says isn't misinformation or disinformation. And it's
Yep.
like the same shit that happened here during COVID. But now you have all these people in wildfire danger, and the rest of the world, like, really doesn't, like, they can't share what's going on.
Yeah, they don't want those videos and screen recordings going around. And in fact, I saw one last night. I think I reposted it, but it was some woman in Canada, and there was like a whole crowd watching this wildfire. And then all of a sudden, there was an explosion, and it looked like a mushroom cloud, like in
Mhm.
the wildfire. And it just makes no sense. And everyone kind of like started screaming, like, this isn't normal. What is going on? They don't want that stuff going around social media. And same with Maui, the police chief and the governor in one of their press conferences were telling people not to go on social media and to stop talking to one another online because, quote unquote, disinformation is taking place. Yet it's the only place you can go to actually find out what's going on. And then speaking of Canada, Kelowna, Canada is on fire. And guess what? Kelowna was Canada's first 5G smart city, which was put in place in 2020. And kind of like Maui being the first smart island, this was the first city in Canada. Well, now Kelowna is saying that not only does it want to be a smart city, but it wants to be an intelligent city, which means that the city would run on AI. Interesting, because remember when we discussed that conference in Maui that's supposed to have the island governed by AI? So, like,
Yes.
what are the odds? What are the odds of having two cities both on fire within a week of each other, where significant portions of the land are completely burnt to the ground? Both have declared they will be smart cities, and both say they're going to be run by AI. And not just any AI, Microsoft AI is involved in both of these cities. And just like Maui proposing plans to build housing, Kelowna was planning this as well and putting AI in charge of taking care of the permitting. And it's like, what a convenient way to clear land right before building. And like, Tara, do you remember a while back when we did like the scary AI stories? Wasn't
Yeah.
it Microsoft's AI that was like threatening people?
It's either Microsoft or Google.
Yeah, it was one or the other. So it's just like interesting. I mean, there's no way these are coincidences.
No, and you know what else is interesting is not only with these fires occurring in places where AI control is being proposed, but these major fires that are happening in Canada and Hawaii and Spain, they're in areas with a lot of indigenous people. Like, don't you find that fucking strange?
Yep.
Yeah. And now it's like being reported that the Maui wildfires were probably caused by a power grid malfunction. But I think this sounds a little suspicious too. So there's a publication called Hawaii News Now, and they were talking about how Bob Marshall, he's the founder and CEO of a sensor and data technology company called Whisker Labs. And he is saying that data from the company's sensors suggested that there were dozens of power grid malfunctions across Maui, and that between August 7th and 8th, there were 78 sensors on Maui that detected 122 faults on the island's electrical grid, which he says is, quote, not normal at all, because there's typically no more than a few faults on a given day. And he said that looking at the sensors in Lahaina, there were 34 faults measured between 11 p.m. Monday night and 5 a.m. on Tuesday, and that they were increasing in frequency and severity. And when Hawaiian Electric was contacted for comment, they had nothing to say. So don't you think that's a little fucking odd?
It is. And I heard something about this the other day, and people were saying that when you looked at their budget, all of this money had shifted from things like focusing on sensors and stuff and being proactive to worrying about renewable energy for climate change. So,
Yep.
like, all of their funding and time and energy was spent on climate change, which ended up causing all these things to malfunction, if that's what the real cause actually was. But I don't know that
Right.
I buy it.
I don't either. And like aside from the Maui fires and the fires we just talked about in Canada and Spain and shit going on across the world, in the United States, there are over 120 wildfires going on right now, and 60 of them are out of control. If you go on the National Interagency Fire Center website, which is nifc.gov, you can see all the current fire statistics. And as of August 20th, they showed large wildfires across the US in Texas, California, Washington, Louisiana, Mississippi, Montana, Wyoming. And then there's another website that I've used frequently looking at fires in Texas, and it's always been super accurate. And it's called Fire Weather and Avalanche Center website. And as of Sunday, their website showed that there were 33 wildfires burning in California, 252 in Texas, 22 in Montana, 23 in Arizona, 26 in Washington, 17 in Oregon, 15 in Colorado, 12 in New Mexico, and 10 in Idaho as like the top states right now. And there was also a huge wildfire in Alaska a couple weeks ago.
This is like, this doesn't happen, right?
Right.
Like, this,
Not to
I
this
never
extent.
remember in my life
Mm-mm.
hearing something of this extent. Um, we'll get this. Okay. So whenever I'm on TikTok, I swear, like every time I see there's all these people that will post these maps where you can track plane patterns. And I don't know if they're like pilots or what, but people post them all the time. Well, yesterday I came across one of them, and he said that he's been seeing very unusual activity in Northern California and Oregon, where this plane had a really strange flight pattern. He showed it, and it was zigzagging and going in circles, and it just made no sense. And 3 to 5 hours later, in the area where this plane was, fires started breaking out. And when he tried to see what plane it was an N557PG, a Cessna Citation V, which, according to the FAA, is registered to the National Aircraft Leasing Corps. Well, I guess they say that this is typically a front for an FBI plane. So this guy starts researching, and he finds all these posts from back in June of 2020 by another man named John Weissman, who was researching this same plane back in 2020 and saw that it was circling DC during the protests. The
Uh-huh.
protests where that famous church caught on fire.
Right.
And sure enough, people confirmed it was an FBI surveillance plane. Well, they looked up the flight logs that indicate that this plane was operated by the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and all of the destinations were listed as unknown, which is a little sketchy.
Yeah.
And Tara, like, this made me think about the Maui episode when you said the FBI was a part of the recovery effort in Maui. And I started looking into it, and remember John Pelletier, the police chief of Maui, who
Mhm.
is like also the guy that was in charge during the Las Vegas shooting?
Yeah.
Well, if you go and look at his LinkedIn profile, he's part of the FBI National Academy. And apparently, he was not voted into Maui. And it's unclear exactly how he became the police chief, but as soon as he did, a bunch of people resigned and retired and said that it was a hostile work environment. And apparently, like there's training in some of these agencies on how to break people down so that they become 100% compliant and loyal. And like those that aren't willing to do that will just quit. So like, could that be what happened here? And it made me think about like all these videos I'm seeing from the locals in Maui where they're saying like, yeah, the roads were blocked. And when they were telling the police, like people need to get through, they were saying, hey, we were just given orders. And then when you look now at like these police that'll come in and they'll say, hey, the powers that be are cutting off travel permits, or like, oh, we're not supposed to distribute any more food. This is just orders that were given. It's like, who's giving these orders? And is there a bigger thing going on with the FBI and this John Pelletier?
Well, also too, he, you know, we talked last week about the Biden administration's response to these fires in Maui, and like what a fucking asshole. I'm sorry. The shit that Biden said, or more accurately did not say, with his no comment about the fires, and literally took what, a week before he even made a comment, and still hasn't gone out there. I guess he's supposed to go out there. Well, I guess by the time this airs, he may have already gone out there, but Pelletier was totally praising Biden's response. Like how amazing that they've sent FEMA and they're doing all these great things for the people of Maui when they're not doing a fucking thing. And so clearly Pelletier is on board with whatever the fucking Biden administration's doing. So the fact that all this shady shit is going on is really no surprise.
Well, and it's weird too, because on his LinkedIn profile, it said something like he was at his previous career for 20 years. But then when you look into it, he was only at the Las Vegas thing for like a short period of time before the shooting happened. And then shortly after, he went to Maui. And like, there was no vote. They didn't vote him in. He somehow got placed in, and the other guy either retired or resigned. And it's like so unclear. There's no like definite record of what exactly happened, but I guess it was a big deal. Like they were writing in the paper about this guy and how they didn't like him, and a bunch of people quit. And those that stayed around were the ones that were like probably desperate and needed their job. So
God, it's so crazy, like how things that happen at the time just seem like they're just anomalies or just a coincidence. And when you look at the timeline and you start adding all this shit up, it's so obvious that all of these things happening are clearly they've been planned.
yeah. I would love to find out where this guy was before Vegas. I'm sure another area where there was a tragedy. All right. Well, I knew it. Like I knew we would have more updates, and I'm sure we will in another couple days. So everyone stay tuned. We'll keep you guys updated, and we'll see you back here on Friday. Thanks for tuning in. If you're sick of all the crazy shit going on in our country and you want to express your support and patriotism for the show, head on over to our Etsy store at UO Patriot Chicks and check out our new stickers. The link can also be found on our website. If you love the show and you want exclusive episodes, support the podcast and join the conversation by becoming a member of our Patreon community. We'll be posting weekly member-only podcast episodes and content that isn't available on the weekly podcast. Every Patreon member will also get a free Unapologetically Outspoken sticker and updates about our new sticker release before they're made public. And be sure to follow us on TikTok at Unapologetically Outspoken. And if you haven't done so already, please rate and review the podcast. The more you support us, the more people we can reach. So help us spread the word.